fantastic. I feel like a school teacher. No, it's good. It's good. Welcome everyone that's here. Grab your drinks. Should be some intro music. We've never thought of that. We should do some intro stuff. Yeah, that'll be good. Next time. But thanks everyone for coming down. Thanks to everyone that is new to the space, new to Aus DeFi and the cool things that we're doing. And glad to be here for everyone that flew in from, I think Ms, wherever she is, flew in the furthest, all the way from Singapore. That's pretty far. Sydney, there's a few people that flew in from Sydney, and everyone else is coming from wherever you are in Melbourne. Thank you so much. My name is Mark. I'm one of the co-founders of Aus DeFi Association. And this meetup that you're at with all the great food and all that comes from our sponsors Sensand, so you see a lot of those folks running around. But before, there we go, that's it. Get excited for carbon credits. So before we get started, let's do the welcome country. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, who are enduring people of the Kulin Nation. I also pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. If people don't know already, to my left is where in the hallway there is the men's and ladies' bathroom. So just that's there. There's also the exit. I think you can go all the way around to one of the other sides of the exit, or just use the main one here as well. Okay. And let's begin because we've got some great talks underway today. You've done the QR code. That's just a few links to like YouTube, Discord, etc. We thank our sponsors, so we've got Sensand and many good folks from Sensand here, so thank you very much for that. Not Centralized is my outfit. Nick's wearing our hoodie there, so we sponsor it as well as Macari back in Sydney and Carmen X up in Queensland for like Queensland Next. We're in 5 states at the moment. We're working on a 6th one, being the ACT, and we're going to launch Newcastle. So there'll be 7 cities that Aus DeFi is running monthly events at by next year, so that's a bit of an achievement there. And then 2.7K on Twitter, 1.7 in Discord, which is great. If you guys like Discord, there's a lot of good chatting there, so make sure to check that out. We've run some recent events, so I'll go through those. And upcoming events, there's all the Christmas parties that are being planned out at the moment. And so, so hopefully you guys get to see some of that stuff. And I'll get Nick up on stage here to run through some of these with me. Nick? Oh, sorry, that literally was. He heard his name, was staring blankly at the screen. Love it. I work with him, it's fantastic.
Sorry, bro.
Okay, so, first thing, TradFi teacher, do you want to tell the good folks about that?
Sorry,
it's his first time on the mic.
Mic issues. So these handsome people on the left-hand side, that's Leah there, by the way. Where's Leah? Oh, there she is. So Leah is the co-lead of New South Wales chapter with me for Aus DeFi. So we stood up this event because we wanted to really take the message about blockchain technology, about tokenization, about efficiency to the TradFi participants. And we wanted to do that very much in their face in the offices of KWM in Sydney. You can't tell them, but we're up on layer. Oh no, you kind of been there. Up on level. See, I said layer
61. Layer 61.
Sure, yeah, layer 61. It's very different from the project we're working on called Layer 69, which is a very different project. Which we
that's for after hours.
That is an after hours project. So we hosted this session where effectively we had bankers in there, we had insurance folk, and we were talking through use cases for blockchain and tokenization and how it would disrupt their businesses if they didn't pay attention.
This is in the wake of FTX, so you can imagine they were already skeptical, just how much more skeptical they would be after FTX. It was fun. So there was that, and then we also had Queensland. They had a meetup, and they had HSF there. They had a couple of different projects. The guys from DAO Master Labs, who teach all about DAOs, were there. I don't think it was recorded, but we are aiming for all of these events. This one is being recorded, and I should say that folks that are here, reminder, this event is recorded. Attendees consent to their property filming and sound recording is not implemented by entering this agreement. You're going to be filmed or photographed, which may be used for marketing or promotional purposes or personal purposes. No, not the last one. So it's all out of the way now, so please continue.
No, I was just going to say blackmail purposes.
like my purposes. So Starkware, which is a layer 2 scaling solution, we've done one event with them which was recorded. This one was recorded as well. We don't have a recording yet, but it took that first initial one all about the layer 2 ZK rollup kind of scaling solution further. We had Starkware. This guy here he works for Starkware out of Israel, but he's based here in Melbourne. So look out, because we're going to do an event here in Melbourne as well. So if you're into the development, even if you're not, just to be aware of what layer 2 solutions can do, especially important in privacy and in cybersecurity. So this is something to keep an eye out for. But we did our second one in Sydney, which is really cool. And then the next one, some fellas in the media, that's all. So if you guys don't know the show AusBiz, they do a segment called Cracking Crypto. 1:20 every day, so 5 days a week they do content on crypto, and they didn't really cover the FTX stuff too much with some of the guests that were there, so we said we'll have to go on there and talk about it. So we did a little bit of that. There's Arturo here who is in the sun right now, so we because this is being filmed, can we all say we hate Arturo? 1, 2, 3, we hate Arturo.
We hate Arturo.
Oh, no, that's too nice.
He sucks.
So he's in sunny Noosa, what we're here, but that's okay because everything is going on down here, but he's our other co-founder, this gentleman here and some dude with a moat. So the next one is on real world use cases. So we spoke about this at the TradFi event, but it's even more important now, just given FTX and the contagion and all the things that are negatively affecting the market right now. Even more reason for mainstream media and others to hate on this space, even though blockchain itself hasn't changed. What happened was a problem with people, processes, and procedures. It was nothing to do with anything to do with like blockchain tech. And so, Nick, what are some of these use cases here?
Yeah, look, I mean, the headlines talk for themselves, but the encouraging thing is it feels to us when we're talking to some of these big potential users of the technology that we're starting to progress in terms of the narrative now into, okay, well, I've seen the memified stuff. What the fuck can this do for me, as a business? How does this help me? So the more we get closer to these real world use cases, the better it gets for this space because it brings in mass adoption. Obviously, our fantastic friends at Sensand are a great example of this, looking at carbon credits on the chain, both the generation of and the trading of. ANZ's been pushing the boat pretty hard in Australia, to be fair. We do know those guys pretty well. And our next speaker will obviously be able to talk through some of this, but ANZ's been blazing a bit of a trail with their Aussie dollar stablecoin. Very much the team there is looking at ways that they can effectively make their balance sheet more effective with tokenization. MakerDAO, who we know reasonably well and not centralized, MakerDAO is very much looking to be, for all intents and purposes, an over-collateralized 24/7 trading dollar stable money market. That's, for all intents and purposes, that's what DAI is. It's a second-by-second trading collateralized money market fund, and they've been working with SocGen, with Clydesdale Bank, Huntington Valley Bank. They've also spoken to the Aussie major banks as well about taking assets off their balance sheet, dropping them into the Maker protocol to back more DAI. So we're a bit of a fan there. JP Morgan makes lots of noise in this space consistently. I mean, they spat out their own team that in effect started a new blockchain business. And then we're seeing, big trading platforms with institutional speed, institutional grade custody, and functionality like Talos. Talos was founded by a bunch of guys who are ex-structured exotics and FX traders from TradFi as well. So the lift and shift from TradFi, particularly derivatives and FX and structured credit, into DeFi is a really transferable skill set.
And Arturo, our co-founder, used to be, and this is his favourite kind of opening line, I used to be an exotics trader. And some people hear that wrong, they hear something else, but it is exotics, and it is a thing. So look it up, Investopedia is really good. But I just wanted to make mention of the JP Morgan one because they're fine. Who here watches the video vlogs and stuff that are fine? That's one of the news outlets that's out there, like CoinDesk, like there's a new one called The Chainsaw out of Australia, so check that one out. But on the DeFi, the head of blockchain for JP Morgan basically said that they moved towards a more public blockchain with Polygon. They chose that because it gives them more persistent payment rails rather than going private and a DLT solution. And because they still want some privacy, they found a way to mix and blend privacy with public blockchains. What they really like about it is the composability as well. It's faster to actually develop on a public blockchain than something private. And if you have things like DLT, so the ASX has DAML, which is really great, and others have their own kind of private languages, you just have this, you end up with all these different languages rather than everything just being EVM compatible. But some of those private ones will be EVM compatible, so that's okay, but it's just something to consider as well. And just before we finish and go to the interviews, could you tell us a bit more about the CBDC thing, whatever we can kind of talk about, even though it's still an ongoing process, but the RBA is doing a CBDC pilot, it's with the public, they've done a consultation and we've been shortlisted, so I thought we might get a few words about that.
Yeah, sure. So some of you may have looked at the pilot program for the CBDC through the RBA. They're taking it very seriously, they're wanting to move very quickly. Hey Rowdy, I just spotted Rowdy there. I'm the hardest working man in show business.
Nick sees shiny things.
Yeah. So we submitted a proposal for the pilot scheme for CBDC. What we found was that the people we were talking to, very technically knowledgeable, very much aware of this real world use case away from the FUD in the space, and the use cases they're taking forward to the pointy end of that process. They had 140 submissions. 190. Sorry, thank you very much, Shane. 190, which is what I originally said, obviously. Submissions. They're whittling it down now to the most obvious real-world use cases that have got hard dollars in those proposals, whether we're looking at genuine, whatever it might be, invoices or POS applications, whatever it might be. They got a lot of stuff which is a bit more pie in the sky, saying, hey, I'd quite like to try and move this $10 from here to here, which they're not interested in. So we're really encouraged by how quickly they're moving, how seriously they're taking it, and how well credentialed the team is. They were peppering us with, unfortunately, you and me on the call.
And we're not the technical people in the team. The technical person is on a beach somewhere in New South Wales.
Yeah, so we did, I think he had his phone tucked in his Speedos or something, so I didn't want to call in case it was on vibrate mode or something, so we had to do that call ourselves.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah, they were very technical questions, so that is really encouraging, and we hope that they see the value in these use cases and look to talk to ASIC, Treasury, APRA, and push it forward.
We're very lucky here in Australia that what is going on with the regulators is actually quite friendly to investors, to projects, to people in the community. They come to events like this. They might be hidden in plain sight here, so just make sure you don't talk about your taxes. And on that note, let's bring up our next guest. Upcoming events. So we've got a web calendar. We've got us on Twitter. We've got a link tree which has all these different links. We're just everywhere. We try to be. I'm running all of it. So if anyone wants to help me out with the socials, please do. Come talk me up class. But we've got the various kind of meetups that are going on around Australia. Not all ours, but there's a lot of other ones. So other groups are contributing to this as well. So if you want to know what's going on. And is anyone here going to NFT Fest?
Let's fucking go!
There you go. So we've got Lee here speaking, Rob Morris and Ash are also speaking. They're part of our community. I'm speaking as well with Rowdy. Where is he? Rowdy, right there.
He's hiding behind the pillar.
There, right up here. So come check that out if you can. I see Ash right there. There you are, sir. That is a fantastic. You're being kind of rubbed here with the panel, but people need to take a look at that because that is a fantastic shot. I don't know where you were, but I'm sure there's a story, sir. So on that note, let's get James up here.
James, here he is. Put your hands together. Take a seat. Now, we welcome James. We've had some pretty exciting lawyers on our chats before. Raymond for his sins is a breakdancer and a rapper and a digital artist. James, I believe that you once ran an underground cockfighting ring. I've been reliably informed. And then you're still dealing in second-hand car parts as well, which is pretty interesting. But then most of the time, what are you doing at Stirling Rose? Give us the shill.
Basically, we are at the large law firm 6 team, and the connection with Raymond sometimes is a long way. He actually, I used to work with Ray, and he also went to the same high school as me. So I look out for Ray as I have a lot of fondness. Yeah, a lot of fondness for Ray. But we're Stirling Rose. We're national. We advise on all things Web3. We focus on enterprise. We focus really on building the space safely and smartly. Our backgrounds are all in traditional law, but my background is in finance and insolvency. So I've seen, especially in the GFC, where everything blows up, where people do the wrong things. And it's a bit like Tolstoy, good run companies or good run projects all the same way. But even the projects that blow up spectacularly, it's always the same thing. It's always humans, processes. And I think this is really helpful what we're talking about today. Rarely is it actually really to do with the systems. It's often deliberate human conscious choice within the organization or within the ecosystem around them. That's what I've been doing around. I guess that's where I come at you in the world of hedge funds, like servers back in the day during the GFC, cleaning up the mess. But the rest of my colleagues, regulatory disputes, anything but brief, that's what we do. So really amazing comments.
So what was your initial aha moment that got you into the Web3 line of thinking? I mean, it's brilliant to apply that legal framework into Web3 space, but was there an aha moment when you went, oh my god, this technology can do X, or I'm really excited by Y?
So I'm a naturally really skeptical person. Dealing with the toxic assets I used to deal with. And I was working with one of my dear colleagues and co-founder now, Natasha, who will be speaking shortly. And I was tasked to look at, this is the task, read all the white papers about all the crypto tokens in the market. I was like, oh, alright, so I read it. Initial skepticism, I read it, and then as I kept reading them, more skepticism, because there was just a lot of garbage. And I was like, I don't see how this maps legally, technically, and economically. But as you do the work, and you have to do the work, I realized, wait a minute, there's a lot of skeptics in the major law firms saying this is all a scam, but no, there was something. And there's actually something real. They're actually the majority of projects, as we know, probably don't hold water, but there are which have real enterprise value, and you can build something meaningful. The technology actually works. And I think just doing that research, which I hated for about 3 months, but actually after doing that diligence, made me realize, okay, this is a thing, and we should be getting into it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that angle about a lot of projects being essentially worthless. I think it was a really early Kevin Rose podcast I was listening to, and I think he's speaking actually at NFT Fest, or like virtual dial-in, obviously. But I think in an early podcast he was saying, look, even if 99% of what we're seeing is rubbish, the 1% will genuinely change the world. And I think that's what I really sort of latch onto. I was just going to sort of move. If you were to share for any of the non-legal eagles here, what do you think are the most pertinent issues that, as a firm, you will typically wrestle with a Web3 project? It may be something around the KYC, maybe something around a protocol not working, or if you were to kind of, pick out, the legal issues that you think are most pertinent when you're looking at a Web3 project. Is there anything that really, really jumps out?
Regulatory. Regulatory. And I think this is actually quite a safe space, because I think what we thought that we're outliers when we've been to a number of conferences over the years. So we said, just get a license. And it's not even a legal test, it's a decision theory, it's basic decision theory, where the downside is criminal liability. You get struck off and blacklisted as a director, you can never work on a project again. So like infinite downside. You're paying a small amount to get a license, which we think is required. And why would it be different? Why would it be any different that this space would be different? And before there's going to be a rush of people trying to get licenses, get it before everyone else, build a nice relationship with the regulators. You don't have to think about it. And actually, it becomes a competitive advantage, because while it's all of your competitors are like, shouldn't we? They already have it. It means you can actually get sophisticated mainstream investment, because to get through with the credit process of a major bank or major fund, they're going to ask, do they have the license? So it's actually a competitive advantage. And I think this is actually an interesting point, because you mentioned JP Morgan. The banks, if anything, they're just these giant hotbeds of regulatory licenses. They have everything in place, and they're rubbing their hands in the legal space, because they're like, okay, FTX has happened. We have the licenses, we have the compliance procedures, we have the deep capital. This is the time to strike. And if anything, I am more bullish and supportive of this space, because this is the time to actually be getting into the space, because a lot of the other projects and things like that are away. Mainstream is going to be getting in at this point.
I mean, that is a lovely segue. I couldn't have said it better myself, into this interactive discussion and the legal perspective on FTX. So, taking a devil's advocate position there, Is DeFi supposed to do away with the need for regulation? Isn't it, self-sovereignty around, I can use my crypto, the trustless nature of DeFi? Doesn't that mean I don't need a bank? Why should we embrace these, regulated, stodgy behemoths waiting into our playground?
That's a good question, okay? But it's one that's playing out. And the analogy I give is Prometheus. Prometheus was a titan. He stole fire. He stole the knowledge from the gods, and he was horribly punished. And the reason why Prometheus is also relevant is Prometheus is, of course, the moon of Saturn. And using the space, going from the Greek analogy to the space analogy, there's this belief that you can achieve regulatory escape velocity. You can get big enough, or you can actually manage to escape the orbit of the capture regulators. However, what is a nation? Right? Philosophically, and also jurisprudentially, a nation is two things. There's monetary sovereignty, which ties to the discussion about CBDCs, but there's also legal sovereignty. And so I think that the question to ask, and this is all coming crashing down, is why would it be treated differently from a regulatory perspective, but also the crypto market is growing, maybe it's shrunk a bit, but it's like, what, $1-2 trillion? The size of the global equity markets, 200 trillion. The size of the global bond markets, 300 trillion. The size of the real property markets, 200 trillion. So the philosophical question you have to ask to the regulators and governments who are trying to defend their sovereignties, I'm not saying this to do with blue. I've set up a movement that specializes in owning Web3, so the skin in the game is very, very real. But that is the question. If those economics and ratios stacked up, why would it be different? And going back to the banking analogy, there are some things banks do really poorly. And the GFC, the social contract of banks was broken. They were bailed out. And it's not a surprise that in 2008, the white paper for Bitcoin comes out. But if you look at it, actually do a diligence of the history of supply shocks and credit shocks throughout history for the last 200, 300 years, the banking sector fundamentally has managed to uphold, and there's been regulation, and people have been held accountable. And it's those systems, and not just the licenses. I think this is something I want to emphasize. A lot of people, they can just sort of pay lip service to it. It's not just the licenses, but it's all the compliance and diligence with meaningful projects with people who are sort of trying to step through and do it substantially. That is what survives these credit shocks which do come. And I don't think it will be any different.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because I think we all love the technology in the space and the freedom it gives you to explore different protocols and different programmatic ways of behaving. There is a bit of a myth, though, that the space isn't regulated currently, which is horseshit, absolute horseshit. You cannot defraud people. You cannot missell. There are consumer protection instances in place. You cannot sell a security if you're not licensed to do so. Admittedly, there is the sidebar of what is a security, granted, but there is already regulation that doesn't directly cover this space, but it certainly dictates how you should and shouldn't behave, even if the mechanics are not specific,
No, absolutely. I don't think anyone here, any meaningful project, wants to hurt people. And I don't think they want to commit fraud. Well, FTX is an interesting example.
I don't think SBF is here though. I can't see his massive throw and his terrible flip-flops.
But to use as a case study, because all the material is off the website. It's been removed. There's no conspiracy. That's just what happens in administrations. They've extended the first credit to the 1st of December. But all the material's gone. But if you actually read what's happening, there's obviously this blatant fraud between Alameda and FTX globally. But even in Australia, they had a license. But if you actually read through the license, it only really dealt with derivatives and foreign exchange. It didn't deal with crypto. But the point being, though, you have to look beyond the licenses. Do you actually have sufficient reserves to deal with it? Do you actually, this is probably the part that's going to come undone for FTX's customers, which is really sad. We've actually been talking to mums and dads who won't have Christmas. I was giving a lecture at Monash, and some of the students said, I'm wiped out. I have nothing left. So it's easy for me to say and walk away, but people have actually been hurt. But the way they set themselves up was they basically immediately transferred all of the custody of the crypto to Antigua. And the only recourse that was available to them on an insolvency was a contractual right of the Australian entities to get the assets back on insolvency. What that really means is that the contractual right of insolvency, for those in the know, it's worthless. Like, it's close to worthless. So it was just, you have a license and everyone's very excited about the license. That seems really good. But I do get very upset, like in a very deep and profound way, because there was some custody in Australia, and this is the point, like, it wasn't that the systems didn't work, it was a deliberate conscious choice to move assets offshore and to basically make it away from the insolvency in Australia, which is terrible from the 30,000 moms and dads that are in the space. I think it's that was the future of it. In terms of like, maybe this is before, it isn't the only one. They're all built on these kind of shaky structures. And what you're going to see, hopefully not.
Are you saying here tonight, James, that there are more giant dominoes to fall? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well,
because that is a scoop.
It could be, because we all know it trades in a basket. Go open Yahoo Finance and any app, you can see they are heavily correlated. And the reason why they're heavily correlated is because it's a very clever trader team that is trading this in a basket. Especially when you have like highly leveraged structures to try to meet the yielding requirements, it will fall. And then you have to check, do they actually have the crypto? Like, have you actually got the custody? And in defense of banks, and I'm not the one who always would say that, but the licensing of the bank means you actually have a person who is responsible at the end of the chain to make sure that the actual assets are there, or there's sufficient fiat there to back it to prevent this kind of scenario happening. And the whole ecosystem of, I don't want to say, the whole ecosystem of law, like trust law, which is quite ironic when we're talking about the trust law, insolvency law, which I do all the time. The legal system is the first, it is an institution and it's centralized, but it is the first institution that is not built on trust. It is built on malfides, it isn't bona fides. The entire legal system is based on the assumption that you don't trust a person and they are going to screw you. And that's why we have contracts, that's why we have trust, that's why we have centralized institutions to enforce it. And so we sort of build, I think it's an innate human need to build systems and build idols and to worship them, but I think to be really skeptic and just read what you see. And I know this is what a lawyer would say, but I do really feel the ability to build projects safely. And the sponsors here are really amazing projects safely. And I think there's going to be space. And here's the thing, everyone talks about JP Morgan, but all the US banks on the retail CBDC in America, they made that announcement. JP Morgan announced the trademark application for its wallet. That was a deliberate announcement. There was a marketing team at JP Morgan at the behest of the executive team saying, we want to issue that noise into the market. That's signal into the market right now. If they were genuinely worried about FTX, they wouldn't be making that statement. That was a deliberate, conscious marketing statement. If anything, I think that actually makes people very excited that the institutions, the mainstream, are here to say, and the regulation is going to be a good thing. It's going to actually increase investment. There will be a bit of rush, I think, with all these shady structures in the market. You kind of know. It's all apparent. Read the FSL and the TNCs. There's nothing. That's it.
Wrapping up then, because we've got to get onto our panel, where can people find you guys? Should they be terrified with the potential fees they'll pay as a little battling builder in this space who's just trying to get their project off the ground, like a Herculean lift of their project, and then, giant law firm comes and just goes, right, there's your fees. Should people be terrified?
No, because
the right answer.
That is why we are no longer part of a monolithic major international firm. We realize you guys are founders and builders, but you also want to build safely. That's our thesis, and that's why we're here. Where we are, there's a whole bundle of us here, and we're national. Find us on LinkedIn, the usual places, that signals.
Do you shitpost on Twitter? That's what we need to know. And if not, why not?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. There should be more of that degenning in the legal community. James, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. And Natasha, I think you're coming up next. Okay. So can we? Are we moving on to panel now? Oh, I've got a clicker, haven't I? Sorry. Yeah. Look at that technology in it. Panel. Shano. All of you will have heard of Shane. And if you haven't heard of him, you won't miss him because he's about 6'4". Are you? Sorry, mate. Ish. So he's embarrassed. He's embarrassed. 6'4" adjacent. Shane, come up here. We've got Francois, probably not quite 6'4", actually.
6'2" on a good day.
Okay, 6'2" on a good day. Natasha, who's just a weapon in this space. And then Peter, who is the most vertically challenged of the panel. Hang on. But intellectually though, Peter's head is like, he's just he's a gigabrain, right? So, you know. Anyway, Mark, you go. I'll be quiet now. Sorry, Peter.
Fantastic. Folks, we've got some seats up here as well that the panelists have left open, so thank you, Nick. And everybody, thanks to Nick for his awesome, it was interviewing or something that he calls it. So yes, thank you, Nick. And thank you to James as well. That was awesome. Really good to learn more about that. And legal stuff is definitely things you're going to hear, NFTs, DeFi, Web3, all of that, okay? So what we're going to do today is, first of all, we're going to do some intros. Have we all got microphones? I guess we're going to pass them around. We've got 3 here.
We've got 2, and then one that's roaming, so
Okay, that's fine. I'm shaking you. If anyone wants to come through, there's more space in the back as well. But yeah, grab some of these. There you go. First of all, we're going to do some quick intros. So it's a 30-second intro. So let's start off with Francois. Tell us who you are, what's your favourite thing to do outside of work, and over to you.
I'm Francois Shonken, from a company called Blockfold, and outside of work, I like playing with my 16-month-old and playing way too much video games, but outside of work is not a lot of time, to be honest.
Fantastic. Peter, tell us who you are.
I'm Peter Moulton. I think everybody here probably bumped into me once or twice so far. Co-founder CEO of Sensand, trading platform, and Aus DeFi host, and I just want to chat a little bit in terms of moment here. I brought the microphone to myself. Yeah, this is mine. Mine. That's right.
So if folks don't know, we keep on getting rugged at the other place that we've been using, the Emerald Peacock, which is nothing to do with the breakfast that they'll put on Friday. That's going to be fine, but microphones have been a bit of a bug there for us. So, Shane, welcome.
Hello, Shane Verner. This is Peter Moulton's microphone. I'm here. I'm the sales director for Fireblocks in Australia, New Zealand.
Fantastic. Yep. For Fireblocks, and tell us what do you do outside of work?
I'm a golfer, a CrossFitter, Scientologist.
Fantastic. CrossFit Scientology people. And Natasha, thank you for joining us. Tell us about what is it that you do and something outside of work.
So I am managing director of Stirling Rose, and that means I'm an emerging tech specialist lawyer. And I have my thing I do outside of work, other than bloody well work all the time, is I have 4 children, one of whom was the Oceania 15-year-old CrossFit champion.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's it. You probably came on.
Yeah, you take it.
The gauntlet's been thrown down.
Yeah.
Congratulations, that's amazing. And so we're going to talk more about the legal stuff as well. And thanks to James for getting us started. But because we had people building real-world use cases in this space, I thought we'd start off with a question about what you're doing, Francois. So you're doing government-issued debt on the blockchain. For the folks that are here that maybe know about that or maybe don't know, let's just assume they don't. What is that? What is government-issued debt, and why are you putting it on the blockchain? What's the reason?
So, for background, Blockfold is a smart contract consulting company. We help people develop smart contracts and help them through reasoning about the implementation of these new digital assets into their platforms. We help ANZ with AWDC. We do a lot of work with Shane and the boys over at Fireblocks. Recently, Saturday Stock Exchange announced that they're going to issue the first government bond issuance via a blockchain. And they've got 3 partners in that. They've got Fireblocks custody, they've got VMware for their blockchain, and then we're helping with organizations to work on that. So the thing that makes it really interesting is it's the first step in a government-issued asset that in the long run, we go on other exchanges and really that's something right now. But it's really interesting because it sets up a set of DeFi rails, and the DeFi rails is the thing that really gets us excited.
That's fantastic. So can you folks hear at the back okay? Just checking. Yep, okay, good, just checking. It's my ears that are going off, so just checking. But no, thanks for that, Francois. And it's really interesting to see these real world use cases as finance and other things in the world of non-Web3 start to realise the potential of what blockchain can do. So if you've got more questions about that, definitely hit up Francis. Yes.
Just so we're there, I'm bringing up the ASX today, and
Was it 250 million they wrote off or something?
Okay, right. So the ELT project's fine, like well,
absolutely.
50 is a chest replacement, not so great. 250.
So just so folks know, chest replacement and the ASX, which has made all the news, is completely separate to their other project, which is trying to implement more DLT across other solutions. So
100%, but Francois just mentioned VMware, and the ASX Symphony project is chosen VMware again. Why private blockchain over VMware?
So there's the way I read it, and when you think on the VMware offering, we're all pretty familiar with normal blockchain implementation. The VMware offering, it looks a lot like a blockchain, but really it's a state machine replication platform. So they've got this underlying layer that does that. On top of that, they place different versions of state machines, and we've all heard about the Daml state machine, and now it's a little bit infamous, but it's not really on Daml itself. And they're also looking at now doing one that is Zenian capacity. The way I read it is there's two reasons you can go here. The one is you have future optionality into public consumption of a uniform and trusted set of assets that you craft in-house. That's one public-facing axis. The other axis, and this is something that excites us about the DeFi space, we also done a lot of consulting analytics, and getting people to integrate is always a really hard challenge. If you've got common rails, even if the common rails are permissioned, you can set forth standards such as multiple people can participate. And this is just one of the future potential pathways that could manifest in, rather than having a custom build, someone could contribute a smart contract that gets reviewed and then consumed on chain.
So optionality is pretty useful there by the sound of things. And I guess even if in a few years' time maybe they decide to go down the public path, at least there is that kind of option to move towards that. So
absolutely, and with these large organizations, you have to understand that it's like an oil tanker, and they need to turn slowly and convince a legion of shareholders. Shane is an absolute master at pulling those shareholders in the right direction. But anyhow, she's got to do that as well, and this is a lever that you can pull.
Full disclosure, I used to work at the ASX, and he's absolutely right. It is, even though it's a private company, it is much more like a government entity. It's a lot of considerations. It's not like if you're in the startup space, it is really easy to pivot, change, move, change systems, all that kind of stuff. It is not so easy when you're working with a big organisation with a lot of legacy systems. So, good on them for trying to change and do some stuff. I think it's going to be a lot of lessons learned from that, so we'll see how we go there. Just considering that we're speaking about like bonds on chain and things like that, I'd like to get the legal aspect of this. What do you think are the legal implications, Natasha, of issuing a bond over blockchain compared with, say, traditional methods?
Okay. I told you about lots of children, and I got taught when you have lots of children, particularly sons, if you want people to listen, you should shout.
Nice try.
I'm going to say something really, really fundamentally important. So I want to talk about the law, and the first thing, I'm just backing up what James has already told you. Just adding blockchain doesn't make the law go away. And most of the time, you actually really love the law. You particularly love the law when the law is coming to help you when you've lost assets. So, you're funny that. So I've been at a lot of these conferences for a lot of years, and there's a lot of philosophy and there's a lot of libertarianism about wanting to do away with the law or to say that code is law. But the thing about code is it's really brittle. And if I were to say to you that the only way the law is going to apply for you if your house is robbed is only meeting a preconditioned, determinate, logic-based statement, then you may say that that logic-based statement is insufficient to meet your needs in respect of your house being stolen. You might want some more fuzzy language around your rights when your house is broken into. So bear with me. And what I'm saying here is that there are first-generation digital assets and bonds which are very, very simple, and they are only written in smart contract language, which is very simple, deterministic. If this happens, do that. But second-generation bonds and all other smart legal contracts, so contracts that have more density in them, will not be able to just run very simplistically without recourse to additional legal structures. So you're going to want to start asking questions like, what are my intellectual property rights? There are people here interested in NFTs, right? You're going to start wanting to ask questions like, who owns this? Do I own this? Can I control this? And when it comes to something like a bond, it is no different to any other contract, and contracts give you some really powerful things. They give you rights, and they give you remedies when things go wrong. And I'll make one last comment here, which hopefully, there's people here who are interested in DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. And we as a law firm, one of the things we're massively interested in, we spend a lot of time working on, is what is going to happen to the law when we move to the metaverse. And the metaverse is a cheesy name for where we're all headed, which is to live increasingly more of our life in a virtual space. And so questions that you need to ask are, who am I in the virtual space, and what laws apply in the virtual space? So you probably don't want that to be logic and deterministically based. You probably want rules to apply when things go wrong in that space, and the bonds are absolutely no different. But they can also be excellent using atomic settlement and all the other wonderful things that can happen when you use automation. And automation does not necessarily have to be tied to logic-based systems. It can also be tied to natural language.
Fantastic, and it's a good thing that we all this, because that is a big brain motor right there. I think just and in general anyway, like with regards to the law, I think there was a lot of misconceptions, and I'm not just mispronouncing that, like misconception, because people thought, oh, we're crypto, we're unregulated, Wild West. Oh, why is that chasing after me? Why is the SEC chasing after it?
Can I just say something to that now? So again, like I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but one thing that's really upset me for the last few years is there has been this myth that crypto is not regulated. But right now, and it's been in many meetups like this for a number of years, where people have spoken very openly about their projects. They haven't had Australian financial services licenses, they haven't had market licenses, and people now have police in their houses. So again, I don't want to be too serious. I'm the same as James. We've founders like you. We've got founded a firm on Web3. But do not get this wrong. There are criminal penalties associated with thinking you're above the law. Crypto is not above the law. And you want the law to be there. The law is actually your friend. Red tape, not so much.
It's interesting because like people will want to, like the libertarian side of things, I get it, there's a whole philosophy there, let's lead away, let's evolve the grid, let's do all that. But then you need a service like the garbage taken out. You need another service like the roads taken care of. You need other things, and all of a sudden you end up kind of forming something that sounds and looks like a government. Isn't it funny? But it's interesting that there's a lot of kind of back and forth in this space, but it is something to take seriously, and we remind everyone that if you do need this kind of stuff, like we are here, Aus DeFi has a Discord, we've got our Twitter, we have people reaching out to us all the time. Who do I speak to in this space that can help you with this or that problem? It is better that you ask now rather than later on, because how else are you going to do some cool stuff and not have police knocking your door? So I don't want to go to jail. Anyone else want to go to jail? Yeah, good. Oh, okay, one here. We'll talk about
It's just for the sex.
I don't think we got that on. No.
Why is it different to other sex? It's a really joke market.
That's it. We'll talk later about the jail sex joke. Anyway, let's get back on topic and more serious stuff with regards to Web3 crypto and stuff being a watershed moment. Peter, you work in the carbon space, and it is not just that you are made of carbon and whatnot and everything, carbon-based life form, but carbon credits. How has Web3 transformed things? I know you said this before in our meetup, but let's just hear it again, right? Because these are the positive things we need to hear in the wake of the FTX drama and saga. But how has doing things in blockchain really transformed what you're doing in your industry?
I think just commenting on the story in general, I think that this happening is just another signal that institutions are going to start coming into blockchain is going to start influencing what happens at the institutional level of things, right? So government debt has happened, and things happen. So I understand how much but the fact that this is happening now to government debt, I mean, that's the definition of institutional as it comes to the top country, right? So carbon markets are 91% wholesale. So if we want to have impact across carbon as a generalisation, impact operating wholesale, that's banking level, country level, institution, it's a global problem, right? Like carbon is about affecting climate change, and if you're not able to macroeconomically make impact across the whole, the entire economy, it's not going to have the impact, and that's the purpose of what carbon is designed for. So I just think that this story means that it just puts validation on blockchain is ready to come into the institutions. So I was really, even though it doesn't directly affect my business in any material way, I thought it just sends a signal that blockchain in a particular market is coming at that level as well, which affects us at carbon.
It's coming. That's what I heard. So that is coming. It is coming.
Today's my 1 year anniversary of Fireblocks, right? That's how I in crypto is not much. Aren't they already here? There's now 30 global banks investing in blockchain technologies today, tokenizing securities, bonds, jumbo jets, toll roads, Telstra towers, you name it, right?
Yeah, that's right. Every time that happens, there's an article about it, which means it's still a thing. It's not like you ever read an article in the AFR about banking uses technology today, right? We use blockchain, so it's still not quite there.
It hasn't got the volume running through it yet, but they've got to build it first, bring in their institutional clients, and then it'll come. It's there, we're seeing it on the ground, I don't feel like colleagues in here. We're a year away from this not being the institutions that come in anymore. We're a year away from our super funds being, it's a mundane question, but of course they're putting some of our money in this space, and we're investing in long-term quantitative securities, all those things I just said. I just wanted to pick up on you, I'm not picking on this.
Are you guys picking on each other?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I feel like I need to represent us two as the DJ and sort of oppose something, right? But I'm feeling like we're.
I think Shane's taking the contrarian, the natural state of Arturo here. So I know we see the video, but Arturo will disagree with anything you say. So just be forward. It's a good thing, even if he doesn't know why he disagrees with you. It's like, when we have a little WhatsApp chat and there was something where it's like, why did you write this? I'm like, you wrote that. November last year, he's like, why did I write this? So it's good, but this is the thing, we need to question what is going on. We can't just accept, and you're right, I think this is this watershed moment that people keep talking about. Well, maybe it's already kind of happening and these rails are coming, but just for everyone on the panel, let's get the crystal ball out and financial advice. Okay, maybe not financial, but legal advice. Where do you think?
She can't even joke about that.
There'll be disclaimers underneath here, but guys, where do you think this space is going to be in a year? I'm getting wrong. Where do you think the space is going to be in a year, Francois? What's your crystal ball moment for this?
This is going to sound like just copying Shane, but I'm of the opinion that it's already here, and slowly it will just become the norm, akin to at one point it was EFT transfers. It's just materializing in institutions.
Fantastic. Natasha, where are your thoughts on where we're going to be in a year's time?
I'm going to echo and say it's already here. The beautiful thing that we get to do as lawyers is we're horizontal. So we get involved in projects in every industry, every sector. So you get to see the zeitgeist. And I think that the aha moment is actually not about blockchain, because there's lots of different types of blockchains. The aha moment really is digital assets and the tokenization of everything. So if you just work on the assumption that we are creating a digital twin of everything, of our thoughts, of our feelings, of people, of projects, of relationships, if you work on that assumption, every single thing like that needs to be packetized. There are technical questions to be asked. There are plumbing questions to be asked. There's also questions to be asked about the laws of those packetization. That is happening right now. It's happening in institutions who are doing it very well, but sometimes very quietly, and we advise those people. But it's also happening in garages, and it's also happening in people who are making markets to trade those assets.
Fantastic. Shane?
Thoughts and feelings is a little bit esoteric, but we obviously in securities bonds. I guess we all read the same thing. We see what Swift is doing, and their board is facing an existential crisis in the face of somebody mentioned atomic settlement. Before we see what Mastercard things that they're doing, we see what the world's largest bank announced 3 weeks ago that they're in this space now. The world's largest liquidity provider based in New York, Melbourne. We're seeing extraordinary institutional adoption in a relatively short period of time. The first tokenized bond was in 2018, and it was anyone?
EIB?
No. Commonwealth Bank of Australia. The World Bank followed a week later.
What CDA was first in the world or something?
Yeah, so
What is the name? There you go, Australia leading the way.
That's only 4 years ago. That's no time at all in this sort of world. So they're building the rails today that in 2 years' time, Monday, Canada, it's
Absolutely, that's fantastic. We're going to start getting some audience questions in. So there's a bit of room here. If folks want to come in here so you can see a bit more, this is where it gets interactive, and Melbourne's usually being great. So I'm surprised no one's already been putting their hand up. Maybe it's something to do with the venue. The Emerald Peacock just entices more people to start asking questions whilst we're doing intros or something. But let's throw to the audience. Do people in the audience have questions for our esteemed panelists here? We've got a question here. Ali.
Hello. Ali here. Guys. I'm a security architect with rapidly expanding interest in the crypto space. Hello. One of the things I've picked up on in terms of the velocity of usage and the VCs and the founders in the space that have come along. What do you guys think from the perspective of the skills gap that we possibly might have in the sector at the moment? What type of impacts might that have in the velocity of being able to really get to the market? Also, with the regulation of the space, in terms of the regulation that's coming out at the moment, do you guys worry that maybe the people that are making the regulation, is this an early draft of the regulation, and do we expect the regulation to improve with time going forward as we have more people coming into the sector?
That's a really good question.
I wonder if you want to answer that.
Take a second.
Sorry for you on the spot, but you're on the spot.
No, I'm more than happy to answer that question. Regulators are only human too. And the reality is they actually don't get paid very much. And the reality is that a lot of them have had to, like most people here, learn an entirely different skill. So most people, when you're doing digitalization, which every organization is doing, for those people who, and you guys are those people, you're doing this on top of whatever else you're doing, unless it's your daily bread. But for a lot of people, it's their extra thing they're learning. So for inside the regulators, there's a literacy gap. Guess what? Most people aren't computer scientists. So in order to actually be able to regulate really well, people had to come up the curve to even become literate, to understand there's a whole, you speak a different language in here, right? So I talk about atomic swaps and ZK roll-ups. These things are meaningless. So a lot of the regulation at first, people didn't regulate because they didn't actually understand what you're doing. So now there is an inherent focus. As soon as FTX happened, well, 1 month ago, even in ASIC, same MAS, these ships are starting to fall because they're going, oh, that's what you guys were doing. Okay? So the literacy is coming up. The regulation hasn't really ever changed. If you are issuing or dealing in financial products and services, and guess what? Most digital assets, they're actually acting as money, right? You're trading them and acting as money. They're regulated. That really hasn't changed. But it is tangentially what I'm answering is actually answering your first question as well, which is there is broad spectrum dislocation and change required across the entire globe in all institutions because real literacy sits in juniors. It sits in digital natives. I can assure you, I have sat in hundreds of executive rooms of the biggest organisations in the world, and I also have sat in Year 6 classroom and the exact same questions asked about the metaverse and what is happening with blockchain. The Year 6 students have these same questions as the executives, but in some ways they have more instinctive knowledge because they've grown up with Roblox and they've grown up with Fortnite. So that has to be dealt with people doing their daily jobs, their daily bread and learning. Regulators, they're kind of there, some better than others, MAS, good and Singapore. Australia, we're getting there. Now there's an impetus, consumers are hurting, we've got a left-wing government, you're going to see more and more pile-on. Do not expect to be treated nicely, just go and get your licenses, please.
So regulators should get on robots, is what I'm hearing, which is great.
That's the best takeaway.
Absolutely.
To answer your first question, we're really lucky in Fireblocks we get to speak to founders who they've raised some cash and now they're launching. And the big gap that we see time and again is the foundations, the plumbing for your security architect. I'm just trying to go to that. Yeah. But we see that an idea, a pack, a raise, the start of an execution. Oh shit, what are we going to do? How are we going to keep this stuff safe? How are we going to send it to other people? What happens? How much does it cost? A sort of broad lack of detailed understanding of just what is required to play on the blockchain, to tokenize an asset, to move it around safely, securely, at pace, and everything associated with it.
And it was a great question. You mentioned the skills gap there. I mean, for the rest of the panel, like, what do you guys think of the skills that people need that maybe aren't working in Web3 or they're doing NFT stuff, they're coming to these events, but they want to work more in Web3? Like, what would you suggest from your perspectives? Yeah.
I'm going to just do 10 seconds on this and then actually, so it's a hyper-specialized thing and it's so new that there's going to be gaps on things. Like if you're building an application, we're a Web2 product, but when you're doing something in Web3, it's going to have a different level of security and considerations. It's a different angle, the same way that regulators that have that info. Even in normal software, you don't. So that's why I'm going to hand over to Francois, because we actually recently engaged these guys to help us in implementation of our Web3 element of our business as well, which is how we got into even all that. When we all this came up, I'm like, we're coming in for the talk. So he's the perfect person to talk about that, I think. So
it's beautiful. Ali, your question is predicated on a belief that there is a skill shortage and that learning curve has a bit of a gap. That belief, in my experience, fully founded.
I feel wrong by the way you frame that sentence. It's the journey.
Now, we could talk in platitudes around you need to get into this with rigor, go and study up on things like previous audit reports. Obviously, on-chain development feels a lot more like firmware development than it would like traditional Web2. The entire ethos of break fast, learn, fix fast, that just doesn't apply in this context. We have a leg of the business that does analytics and we specialize in that run fast, break fast. But on the blockchain side, it's waterfall, it's test-driven development, 100% coverage. Our view is 100% coverage is your baseline. You go beyond that, positive, negative, RBAC. On top of that, you put scenarios, and now you're ready to run something akin to a in your own house. To that, you have to get your entire cohort of folk developing these assets to really think like pen testers. Every single member of the team needs to come at this from well, I've gone through Ethernos in the last 6 months, I'll do it again. I've gone in search of the toughest challenges in this space. I've had a look at the most recent entries on Rect, and I can replay those fashion acts. So there is a steep learning curve. I think there's a really good opportunity though, because there's ample demand, as Shane had highlighted. So if you manage to climb that curve and a little bit of finesse in terms of promoting yourself, good opportunities.
Sounds like Kyall Walker.
Yeah, I think that is for the founders out there, and there's when you're doing software, there's this thing like, you know, when you're investing in a startup that is focused on software development, you build fast, break things fast and all that. And when you're doing stuff that's hardware related, there's a bit of an old saying in it. It's called hardware's hard. Right? It takes a really long time. The development thing on hardware, you have to do it once and you got to get it right. You can sometimes do a second iteration, but that's it, right? You get one realistic bite of the cherry, and this analogy feels a lot like that. It's like taking a software version of the way you need to apply hardware development systems to the way that you're doing the thing you're doing, because Web3 is so financially, like it's an asset as well as a utility as well as an asset. You can't stuff it up because there's a financial implication to it. So it resonates in that hardware line of thinking and development.
I think it's interesting. Hardware is hard is almost as poignant a saying as what Nick had on Aus the other day. We're talking about proof of reserves, and he said you've got to be good at the proof and you've got to be good at the reserves. With the quality of both those things, it was brilliant. It's like blockchain is block and something else. Anyway, do we have other audience? I think like a grade 6-year-old. Other audience questions up the back. Anyone? Anything for our panel? How not to go to jail? Mia's right here, all the way from Singapore with a question. Let's get the mic over to her. Behind you. Oh.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Hi everyone, it's from Singapore. I'm a crypto journalist, commentator, and NFT creator as well. I've read a lot about the FTX collapse, and one of the aspects that alarmed me most was the lack of governance and kind of responsibility at the VC level. Hundreds of millions of dollars was poured into this company, yet none of the VCs seemed to take a daily interest in what was going on or sit on the boards. I see regulation kind of at the VC level that might be required. So why? Yeah, how did that happen?
So we have been involved in many due diligences. So due diligence is when an investor goes into make an investment, and then they ask somebody, usually a law firm or an accounting firm, to go and check the books, so to speak, and check what are all the rules around that company before they make an investment. And having done that for a number of years, there was a window where we would actually set up, imagine tables and tables where you would write and say, well, actually, this company, which has a market cap of $1 billion, is actually engaging in illegal activity, which is criminal. And they'll say, I don't give a shit, because they've got an awesome market cap. So that's the reality in the market. If the commercial ratios are good enough, there was a window in the past where people were just prepared to pour money in because they wanted to do it really quickly to be able to make the arbitrage. The second comment I would make is, again, about literacy. Do not assume just because someone's in a VC that they're actually literate. And there is so much jargon, there's so much new knowledge that people have dangerous amounts of knowledge even to invest. That window has just shut. So if you're going to try to, the VC window for Web3 is very small, but we've had this conversation this week. If your product is good and it is real and you're going to be a grown-up about it, then you will absolutely get funding for good grown-up products. So window small for bullshit. People are starting to ask more questions about Web3 products, as they should be.
I'm going to take a slightly different angle to answer it as well, though, specifically regarding FTX. So the last decade, money was free, right? Like the money tap was on. So what that meant was that good businesses, now let's not, governance aside, meant they turn over revenue, right? Like they were generating revenue, not necessarily profit, because they were trading and doing all sorts of dodgy stuff, but they were moving numbers, right? So when you're a big product like FTX and there's a lot of free money that's gone into venture funds, like how many times did you give out, XYZ fund raised another $2.5 billion, run at Sequoia and blah, 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 right? What that means is that there is a lot of money looking for a home, and in venture, if you're a smart person like Sam was, you're going, hey, I've got this great business, I've turned over all of this, and then what do? You go, okay, well, I'm doing a $500 million raise, you can do 10, 20 million, you can do 50, and no one gets enough ownership percentage to demand a board seat. And he specifically did that, right? There was nobody on the cap table that had a material amount to demand board seats. There was so much demand to get on the cap table because the revenue numbers were so astronomically high, and they got to the third volume limit, ranking in overnight, like 24 months or something. It was instantaneous, right? There was so much demand to get on the cap table that if you were offered 1%, you took it. Right? It's as simple as that. And that's how it happened. And he's a smart guy, so he played the rules to his benefit. He was saying I'm regulated. He wasn't doing things that the regulation's saying. Now that's fraud as opposed to there's no regulation. And to add to that, he also said, well, there's so much demand, I can pick and choose who I want. No one's going to get too much position. I don't need to even report balance sheets or anything. People just wanted to get in. And he FOMO'd the investors. And no investor in Silicon Valley wants to be the person who didn't get eBay when it first went up and they made 100,000% in 8 months. No one wants to be that investor.
And there's also there is a science to VC, but it is also an art. A lot of VCs are really built on gut, it's built on feeling, it's built on liking the team. It's not all about you've met some ratio. So
yeah, and if he was doing the right thing, then he would have felt a little bit like CZ, right? And 3 months CZ might be out or something, and then this day traveling.
We don't have finance people here, or do we?
No, I just don't want that thing to come back. But you know what I mean? Like you assume things are being done the right way and everything, and the founder has the ability to marshal these resources. You're backing the founder. In this case, he was just literally committing fraud. He was saying he was doing the right thing. He had regulation. He had an AFSL in Australia.
That's right. So AFSLs have authorizations. If you don't end up in jail, you have to have the right authorizations. You can't just have an AFSL. It's not like this blank slate. You have to have the right piece.
Yeah, but even if you have an AFSL, you can still just have a piece of paper that says, I'm doing these things, and then not do it.
There's definitely the enforcement angle there. Let's get a question here from Simon.
A comment.
Yeah.
So, we are investing, we've done that sort of thing. And I mean, it's not the window's closed for now. The window could easily open again. Because it's all, and you do get these sharp bull markets in crypto, and that happen a lot more commonly than you would get them in other sort of venture fields. And when you get a very sharp bull market, the power dynamics shift completely.
Power dynamics shift completely. You get massive party rounds, as you say, no one's got to be on stake to be able to demand DD. And SBF will let people do DD. There's a bunch of these. You just keep saying until enough people say, yes, no, I'm not doing it because there's too much demand. I don't want to fill out the paperwork. That's the angle that it's all against people. So it can happen again. And it's, we did DD on
so this is the line.
We took a whole.
VCs are people too. They've also got a lot of knowledge. They've got lots of stuff they're trying to learn about. It's hard for VCs too.
We took a whole team on Westpac from the fraud department, from etc. over to Coinbase in 2014. we're on the downside of the bull market. And if we'd been doing it in 2013, probably would have been a different story.
So then this was the reason that Coinbase was so determined to come as soon as possible, because they were a centralized institution and they wanted to have transparently show their balance sheet and all these things going public, and the transparency to say these things are true. We have this much capital. We like you can see what our business is actually doing, and that was their strategy. That was the mindful decision. So there's lots of different ways of doing it.
So we started I'd say it's probably about a year ago now that VCs came to firms like Stirling Rose and said, come sit with us when the founders come. That's when it started about a year ago. What are they doing? What are they doing wrong? And we're the ones sitting in the room quietly going when they walk out, yeah, that's a good idea, but. That was probably about a year ago. And now in the VCs we're involved in, the funds are very, very tight for these kind of projects, but I can't speak for them.
It's really interesting, given all the stuff that's going on, and people at the overall level seeing this at the headline level. Oh, this is crypto's fault. Look at what crypto's done. It's like, well, then TradFi's had bigger scams, and TradFi's had bigger things like this, people, procedure, process problems, and crypto is growing. So no doubt it will get worse until we fix it. But fixing it, we could be using some of the tools that we've got in front of us on the blockchain tech, right? We could be using transparent ways of doing things, so that, for example, what some people are building are ways that you can, right now, if anyone here does work, how do you know that the people paying you your job, it has the funds? You don't see that. You just have to put trust in everything that you do. When you really explore the blockchain, you don't realize just how much more we are actually trusting just out of the real world. And I know there's repercussions and stuff like that. We can go to courts and arbitration, but at a small business level, it's not so easy to just stop what you're doing and say go to arbitration. But we can do better with blockchain tech. And I think let's finish up on a positive. Let's go around the room. What do you guys think are the reasons why people should, even though FTX has happened and there are these misconceptions out there, what do you think, Natasha, about why people should really concentrate and focus and still pay attention to this space?
Because digital assets are phenomenal, and the ability to actually automate different parts of digital assets, so programmable digital assets, that movement where we went from, I always say the same thing, we went from clamshells to paper notes and coins, and then we went to digital money, and now to move to programmable money that can pay attention to what your tax is, money that can pay attention to what, if you want to gamble some fractional part of it, you want to lend a tiny bit of it. That's an inherently more complex society that we're working to. I am a huge proponent, and our expertise is in smart legal contracts. So the idea that contracts of the future will be able to tap you on the shoulder. Your contracts will listen to what's happening, send notices, measure your business goals, tie into your ERP systems. That is a level of complexity that we have to be really careful about what kind of plumbing and what kind of privacy is actually underpinning something so phenomenal as the assets that are coming.
I think it's far more prosaic than that, from my opinion. Last week, regulators announced that they're coming, and they said we're going to do something in 2025. Now it's going to be 2023, and I don't think, to your point earlier, that it's going to be a light regulatory wrap-up. But I think that's going to put an air of legitimacy in this space that perhaps isn't there today, particularly on the back of the malfeasance that we've seen over the last few months. I believe in my heart in this space. I see ANZ Bank produce a stablecoin. I'm witnessing that in other places. I see Reserve Bank of Australia producing a CBDC at pace. Francois and I worked on a project together where a bank did something in 99 days that was completely new to them. It's never happened anyway. There's no consortium finance. It's just bullshit. I've seen them do contracts in weeks, and that just never happens. They're serious when they come and legitimises this whole space. And it'll all be rubbed in oil. It'll be fabulous.
We'll all be rubbed in oil, that's what I heard. Fireblocks and oil. There we go. Thank you, Sam.
I want to just echo the last sentence that legitimacy, and that was my point about the bond, right?
Last sentence was actually about the oil.
Yeah, that too.
And the rubbing.
Yeah. The legitimacy of that is, I think, really, that's the thing that I'm really excited about as well. So, and I guess the other thing speaking from a Sensand lens, looking at blockchain, we use parts of Web3 in carbon markets, so not all of it, and you don't have to be all or nothing. We use certain elements of it, and it has a huge amount of value. You just need to be able to pick good bits out, and you don't have to implement everything. Decentralization, as an example, and Arturo and I had some interesting chats, isn't necessarily a good thing in carbon markets. And there's reasons why that's the case, and we won't go into that. I think we even touched on it briefly last Aus DeFi, but you don't have to use everything in order to solve the problem that you're trying to solve. And the bonds coming out, institutional banks, ANZ, stable coins and so forth, it's coming to all of those things, and it's going, obviously it's coming to carbon, but it doesn't have to be everything. And that's the thing that I'm really excited about, is that you can apply so many great mental models to things if you take a bit of an imagination towards it and just use the good bits that suit your use case.
It's a spectrum, right? Like you don't have to be completely TradFi, completely DeFi. You can actually use the tools across. Yeah. Francois.
So, Mark, I have to be blurring the lines there are very important because we're not going to go and say, oh, the banks are now changed into DeFi entities. They just need to use it with its competitive advantage. Now, touching on competitive advantage, we've seen bucket loads of malfeasance. That will just induce a flight to quality. So when you have highly regulated, highly reputable entities entering that space, there should be a rising of the tide. I think that's very exciting because take that rising of the tide into the basic promise of Web3. So Web 1 is you can get access to data, Web 2 you can contribute, Web 3 is an expression of value on chain, which yields economic settlement and all these things. The union of that with flight to quality, large institutions coming in, not that that's the only way you can do it, it should cause a rising tide. I think that's quite exciting.
I think that's very exciting. So if you're working on projects, I mean, you should have just done this anyway. Like, I'm not going to get people to put hands up here, but we know when we bought into things that were purely just FOMO, or we've been working on things that were just there for the quick buck. That just does not work anymore. In any market, not just crypto, technology as well, and we're seeing a lot of them being affected too. But working on good quality project is really key here. And speaking of quality, I mean, what a great quality chat. It is recorded. If you didn't already know, we've got the Aus DeFi YouTube channel where this is going to go. Okay, and please do subscribe to that. I've only got 192 subscribers, and it's all my blood, sweat, and tears. No, maybe not blood. Maybe not, yeah. So there's a lot of work that goes into that, and I'd love for people to subscribe because we're doing more interviews. I've got Shakira Gardner from up in Queensland and Katarina from New South Wales going to be contributing to that. I see Matt Hooper here, our Queensland chapter lead, and shout out everyone to the great quality speakers that we've had on stage. Thank you so much. Alright, we're just going to finish up. I've completely finished up. There was a thank you there, and I don't know how to get back when you play, but there is a QR code. I'll leave that up there if you want to get all the links and stuff. And the best part of these events, apart from all the talks and stuff, is the networking. So please continue. Please come and chat to the speakers, and if anyone's going to Ocean Gallery later, we might see you guys there. Take care.